world's best footballers are on this list. A thrilling sight in full flight, Rafael Leao produced arguably the assist of the season in AC Milan's decisive Champions League quarter-final draw with Napoli at the Maradona, just a couple of weeks after tearing the runaway Serie A leaders to shreds at the same venue. Leao, who was also on target twice for Portugal at the World Cup despite being bizarrely deployed as an impact sub, was unsurprisingly rewarded with a bumper new contract by the Rossoneri at the end of a campaign that yielded 16 goals and 11 assists in total. A frankly ridiculous talent, Pedri is still only 20 and yet is coming off a campaign that saw him named in the Liga Team of the Season for the second consecutive year thanks to his contribution to Barcelona's title win. He also started all 4 games for Spain at the 2022 World Cup, with Luis Enrique labelling Pedri Harry Potter for his magical displays in midfield. Rodrigo may still be a little overshadowed by his compatriot and clubmate Vinicius Jr., but the Brazilian established himself as an important Real Madrid player in his own right last season, scoring a career-high 19 goals in all competitions. He also emerged as a big-game player, sealing his side's place in the Champions League quarter-finals with a brace against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge before striking twice again to win the Copa del Rey for Madrid in May, courtesy of a 2-1 victory over Osasuna. Is Ruben Dias the best centre-back in the world? The Portuguese just never seems to make a mistake or get caught out of position. He had an immediate transformative effect on Manchester City after joining from Benfica in 2020, but last season was arguably his best yet, with Dias proving the foundation on which his side's treble was constructed. Karim Benzema may not have hit the same heights as his 2021-22 campaign, primarily because he was hindered by fitness problems, with a thigh injury also ruling him out of the World Cup. However, the striker still hit 31 goals in just 43 games for Real Madrid, including a historic hat-trick at Camp Nou as Los Blancos came from behind on aggregate to beat Barcelona in the semi-finals of the Copa del Rey. It came as no surprise then to see Al Ittihad offer him a fortune to move to Saudi Arabia during the summer. Bayern Munich were nowhere near their best last season, and yet they still won the Bundesliga. Borussia Dortmund's final day collapse certainly helped in that regard, but attacking midfielder Jamal Musiala was the man that got the Bavarians over the line, scoring the late winner at Köln that decided the title race. It was the 20-year-old's 16th goal of the 2022-23 campaign in all competitions and perfectly illustrated why Lothar Matthaus believes Musiala, who also made 13 assists, can become the next Messi. The World Cup most definitely didn't go as the striker hoped, with Lautaro Martinez quickly losing his starting spot to Julian Alvarez. However, he showed impressive mettle to score the decisive spot kick in Argentina's epic quarter-final win over Netherlands, before then going on to underline his class by firing Inter to the Champions League final, with his winner in the second leg of the semi against AC Milan, cementing his status as a Milan derby legend. A season that began with several question marks over Antoine Griezmann's France future ended with him confirmed as one of the very best and most intelligent footballers in the game today. The 32-year-old was outstanding for Atletico Madrid, directly involved in 32 goals in all competitions. But it was his form in Qatar that really caught the eye, with Didier Deschamps' decision to employ Griezmann as the link between his midfield and attack proving an absolute masterstroke. One really can't help but wonder what Real Madrid were thinking by letting Martin Odegaard go. And for just 30 millimeters, 38 Maritza mines. Last season, the Norwegian showed beyond a shadow of a doubt that he is one of the best numbered 10s in the world. The Arsenal captain leading by example as he contributed 15 goals and 7 assists to his club's surprise Premier League title challenge. Kyle Walker says his Manchester City teammate, İlkay Gündoğan, turns into prime Zinedine Zidane at the business end of every season, and the England international has a point. Gündoğan arguably became Pep Guardiola's most important player during the Premier League title run-in, scoring hugely important doubles against Leeds and Everton before scoring twice again in the FA Cup final win over Manchester United. Victor Osimhen had plenty of ups and downs following his transfer from Lille to Napoli in 2020, initially struggling to justify his 70 million price tag. However, the scintillating Nigeria striker is now worth more than double that fee after a sensational 2022-23 season that ended with the striker becoming the first African to be crowned Serie A's capocannoniere, after scoring 26 times in just 32 games as Napoli win their first Scudetto since 1990. Erling Haaland's arrival at the Etihad last summer dominated the headlines, but as it transpired, Manchester City had actually signed 2 outstanding attackers, as Julian Alvarez underlined with 21 goal involvements in his treble-winning debut season in England. It was in Qatar, though, where the striker really proved his class, taking Lautaro Martinez's place in Lionel Scaloni's starting Ibintrines and going on to score 4 goals as Argentina lifted the World Cup. Arsenal's 2022-23 campaign may have ended in agony, with Mikel Arteta's side overtaken by Man City during the Premier League title run-in. But they wouldn't have even been in contention had it not been for the fine form of Bukayo Saka. The winger was involved in 25 goals for the Gunners, while he also shone for England at the World Cup, netting 3 times in total. Pep Guardiola erred badly when he left Rodri out of his starting lineup for the 2020 Champions League final against Chelsea. But there was no chance of the Manchester City manager making the same mistake in this season's tournament decider in Istanbul. The Spain international had long since proven himself the best defensive midfielder player in the world before capping an immaculate campaign before scoring the winner against Inter. Robert Lewandowski has set such ridiculously high standards for himself that the prolific Pole came in for some criticism during his first season in Spain after last summer's acrimonious move from Bayern Munich to Barcelona, particularly because of his struggles in the Clásico. However, the Catalans simply would not have won a First Liga title in 4 years without Lewandowski, who won the Pichichi Award with 32 goals in 34 games. Is there a better wide attacker in world football right now than Bernardo Silva? The Portuguese is the perfect Pep Guardiola player, as intelligent as he is industrious, a player capable of both scoring and creating goals, but also applying colossal amounts of pressure to opponents. Silva was one of the main reasons why Manchester City won the treble, and his stunning performance in the Champions League second-leg demolition if Real Madrid will live long in the memory. The little maestro signed a contract extension with Real Madrid in June. And why not? Even at 37 years of age, Luka Modric is pulling off passes that other players can't even envisage. The Croatian midfielder was also still covering a ridiculous amount of ground, as his country finished 3rd at the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, only adding to his legacy as one of the finest midfielders of all time. Hard to believe now, but there was a time at the start of Vinicius Jr.'s Real Madrid career when he used to frustrate fans and teammates with his finishing and final ball. Not anymore, though. Vinicius is now as effective as he is exciting, proving himself as one of the very best players on the planet with 42 goal involvements last season. At times, in fact, the Brazilian was borderline unplayable. Liverpool's form may have dipped dramatically last season, but Mohamed Salah's most certainly did not. Only Erling Haaland and Kylian Mbappe were involved in more goals across Europe's Big Five leagues than the Egyptian sensation, who scored 30 times in all competitions, as well as racking up 16 assists. Fair to say that Liverpool wouldn't have gotten anywhere near to qualifying for the Europa League without their electrifying number 11. England's World Cup bid ended in agony for Harry Kane, who missed a penalty in his country's unfortunate loss to France. But it's worth remembering that only Kylian Mbappe and Lionel Messi, 10 apiece, were involved in more goals in Qatar, 5. Furthermore, it takes a special kind of centre-forward to score 32 goals for a team as dysfunctional as Tottenham were. But that's exactly what Kane is, one of that special breed of attackers capable of doing nearly everything on his own, which is why Bayern felt compelled to sign him during the summer for more than 100 million. 109 minds. It looked like Kevin De Bruyne might suffer more Champions League heartbreak when he was forced off in last season's final against Inter, which would have been very tough for the Belgian to take given the calamitous nature of his and his country's World Cup campaign. But Manchester City just about managed to get the job done without their talismanic attacking midfielder, who had created a staggering 28 goals in all competition beforehand, as well as chipping in with 10 himself, including one sweet strike in the semi-final clash with Real Madrid. Borussia Dortmund would surely have won the German title had Jude Bellingham been fit for their final day meeting with Mainz. The midfielder was the best player in the Bundesliga last season, registering 8 goals and 4 assists, while the 20-year-old's staggeringly mature performances at Qatar 2022 also played a part in Real Madrid's decision to sign him this summer for $103 million, which is already looking like a bargain. Erling Haaland ran out of steam in the final month of the campaign, but one could hardly criticise him for that, given what had gone before. The Norwegian phenomenon smashed the Premier League's all-time single-season goal-scoring record by netting 36 times in just 35 games, while he also finished as top scorer in the Champions League with 12 goals. And the scary thing is, the striker is still only 23. He's going to get even better. Despite more than a decade of unrivaled sustained excellence at the very highest level, there were those that questioned Lionel Messi's status as the greatest of all time. Not anymore, though. The Argentine's second season at PSG may not have gone according to plan at all, even though only 4 players managed more goal involvements. But he produced the best individual performance the World Cup has seen since Diego Maradona by leading his country to glory, with 7 goals, 3 assists, and one man of the match, winning performance after another. Can now be found tearing it up in MLS with Inter Miami.